We are joined today by Professor Kevin Ashford-Rowe, who's the Pro Vice-Chancellor Digital Learning at QUT here in Brisbane. And I'm delighted, Kevin, you could join us. And Kevin's also the recent past president of COLT, the Council of Australasian Universities Leaders of Learning and Teaching. And you've been very generous with your time to share with us, Kevin. So we should probably not waste time getting to the first question. In your current role, what influence do you have over technology-enhanced learning at your institution?
My role as the Pro Vice-Chancellor for Digital Learning means that I have a strong role in leadership around technology that relates to education, so learning and teaching, if you like. And the way that I kind of frame it and see it here at QUT is that what you and I have discussed previously many times, that digital learning and teaching ecosystem and the technologies that play into and inhabit that space.
Yeah, cool. So what's kind of your vision of where this is going over the next 3 to 5 years at your institution?
We at QUT, we're driving a very strong what we're calling digital campus vision. And that's kind of predicated on the notion that we have a recognition here that we have actually 3 main campuses and not 2. We have our 2 magnificent physical campuses in Gardens Point and Kelvin Grove, but we also have an equally important digital campus that is the campus that spans both of those. And in many respects, for many of our students, is often the campus that might be their first entry point to the university, or is the campus that facilitates maybe the majority of their learning and teaching experience, if not for all students, then certainly for an increasing number.
So just teasing that out a little bit, where does that take us in terms of the technologies we're using in terms of learning management systems and things like that? You know, we've got all these different systems all over the place. How does that kind of work in your ecology?
Yeah, well, the first thing I should say is that whilst I'm leading a digital learning conversation, which is ostensibly situated on technology platforms, I don't think that it is really a technology conversation. I think that it's the 2 words that I would use and have used to describe the conversation are access and engagement. I think it's about using technology to facilitate enhanced ways in which students can access their learning and teaching experience, and also using those technologies, particularly where you're operating at scale, to increase the sense of engagement that you create with a student. So if I come back to your question, Michael, and think about it in terms of what particular technologies, I think it's any technologies that enhance that fact of student access and student engagement, and that is probably the test that I would put against existing technologies. Now, I know that learning management systems are in some areas considered to be a little bit passé, or that the world has moved beyond learning management systems. And I suspect that there are people in institutions who are better able to construct their own learning experience that they deliver to students from a whole range of different technologies. But I think the reality for a significant number of institutions, and probably our own at present, is that we still need the degree of certainty and consistency that a platform like a learning management system can provide us with, particularly if we are to look out at the student, look at what we provide from the student's perspective and understand that they want those kind of degrees of consistency. They don't want to have to relearn how to access and engage with us every single time they do a new unit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you might be aware that the O in ACODE stands for open.
I am.
So what opportunities do you see, for higher education to demonstrate learning more through the use of technology, how to democratise higher education, as it were?
I've followed the open learning conversation for a very long time, actually, and particularly, at its beginning, when I think it was MIT who went with open courseware and realised that the value proposition of that experience was not necessarily in the resources that you had access to, but in the credentialing that they provided. And I've watched with interest as it's kind of, not so much ebbed and flowed, but I'd say progressively grown. I think probably now is the time where the real value inherent in open content, open courseware, open access, if it's to fulfill its potential, then that will happen over the next 2 years. Now, it needs to be championed, and we are a university that is working out how we champion that as a part of the experience that we provide. It's really, really important for our students that we don't charge them for things that they don't need to be charged for. But I think the conversation also has to be a mature one as well, Michael. Again, as you and I understand that being given something for free doesn't necessarily mean that it is entirely free. It means that there are understandings that we have to have in terms of curation of that content going forward and the ability to access it. So we just have to have very open understandings, and I think we'll probably end up being in a mixed world where we will still have publishers and we will still be purchasing their resources, but we'll be looking to supplement as heavily as we can from open.
Cool. So really, any kind of inspirational thoughts moving forward?
Inspirational thoughts. I don't know about inspirational necessarily, but I think one of the things that it might be just sort of flagging that we're looking to do here at QUT is we've used a phrase where we've talked about moving from being digital in part to digital at heart. And what we mean by that is that I think for a long time institutions have predominantly come from an industrial analog perspective as to how they do business, and looked to use technology to mimic or make more efficient those analog processes. And it's almost counterintuitive to me as an educator saying this, because we always ran with a pedagogy first and then technology follows narrative. Well, I think that we're at the point in time where we actually have to be much more deeply digital at heart, and we have to be more prepared to understand what are the ways in which technology can help us to really deeply enhance and improve that student experience, and then be prepared to retrospectively look back at our systems and processes and change them to meet the affordances and the advantages that the technology offers, as opposed to constraining the technology to fit into increasingly outmoded and outdated ways in which we think that service offering should be provided. And incidentally, I think we increasingly have student cohorts, whether they're mature age or school leavers, who are already engaging with technologies in those ways and expect us to be able to provide access and engage with them in those same ways.
So you're actually potentially suggesting there are new types of pedagogy yet to be found or had to be articulated.
Look, Michael, you and I have been in this conversation for a number of years together, and one of the things that I have consistently found is that you work with institutions to provide and enable technologies that you think are going to be used in particular ways, only within 2, 4, 6 months to find astounding ways in which academics are using those technologies well above and beyond and much more innovatively than you ever dreamt was possible. So I think to a large extent, I mean, it can't be just about throwing technologies around, but I think we do need to be putting the technologies in the hands of the teachers and then sit back and be astounded at the ways in which they use them.
Cool. Yeah, some of them can be very innovative.
Absolutely. And that's where the true innovation of the business lies, I think, is in the teachers.
Wonderful. Look, thanks so much for your time, Kevin. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and wish you all the very best at this time.
Thanks, Michael. I'm grateful for the opportunity.